y'all, it's Kim. This is going to be video number 2 of the Hillary Clinton deposition, about basically her ties with Epstein, what she knew about him and his business, and if he was ever associated with her in any kind of personal setting, besides maybe what Bill Clinton might know. Um, this is, like I said, the second video. I watched the first one. I mean, I have the question, is she just bitter because the way that she was treated by Bill over the years, or is she just naturally like a cold-blooded person? What's the deal with her? I mean, I kind of lean towards it could be both. She may just have this elitist attitude that she just doesn't have to answer for anything. She's never held accountable because she's part of the elite class. We know there's a two-tiered system of justice. Whether anybody wants to believe that or not, I do. You see it all the time. We've got people that are never really held accountable for anything, especially if they're in the government circles and, that kind of stuff. I mean, anyway, obviously stuff happens and we never see like a resolution for it, and people just continue to get away with things. But yes, anyway, here she is. This is hour 2 or whatever. I'll just call it video 2, because there's no way I'm sitting 4.5 hours listening to her. But anyway, if I'm listening to it, you're gonna hear it, because we're not gonna let the Epstein stuff go. The victims need justice, even if there is a statute of limitations. There shouldn't be, but if there is, that should not be a thing. I mean, accountability needs to come no matter who it is. Anyway, let's go and start this and hear what she has to say.
The Clinton Foundation accepts donations as part of carrying out its work.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
Out its work, is that accurate?
Yes.
And when seeking, let me take a step back. People charitably provide donations to the foundation.
It's a 501c3, yes.
And do you or anyone else at the foundation ever solicit donations for the foundation?
I'm sure that happens. People talk to us, we talk to people, they ask questions about the work that's being done, and I'm sure that happened in the years before I was involved.
Did you solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein for the foundation?
I had no contact with Jeffrey Epstein. I did not solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein.
Did you solicit any funds for the foundation from Ms. Maxwell?
I did not. Again, we're talking about the creation of the foundation. I was not involved in the creation of the foundation or the creation of CGI. In those early years, I was incredibly focused on my job in the Senate. Bill was focused on setting up the foundation and starting CGI.
And understanding you were occupied with your career as a senator and then your presidential campaign leading up to 2008, but at this time, were you discussing starting the CGI with President Clinton?
I'm going to object to any communications between the two of them. You can ask generally, but that's covered by the marital communications privilege.
Understood. So generally speaking,
I am sure that I talked to my husband about what he was doing to set up the foundation. It was more on the substance of the work. How many drugs was he getting made in India? What was the idea that was going to motivate CGI to be what he wanted it to be? It was not in the weeds. It was the concept. It was the excitement that he had about trying to establish the foundation and CGI.
And similar question for Mr. Band. Did you discuss the creation of CGI with Mr. Band?
I may have, because he was around. He worked for my husband. He was a personal aide to my husband, but I don't have any recollections of any specific conversations.
Broadly speaking, at any time, do you recall any discussions related to distancing the foundation or CGI from Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell?
I don't recall any conversations. I know that sometime maybe 2003 or so, Bill did not have any ongoing contact with Epstein. And in preparation for this hearing, it became clear to him that Epstein was not interested in the charitable work that was motivating Bill as he traveled around the world, getting people to commit to providing low-cost drugs for not just HIV/AIDS, but eventually tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases.
And what is your understanding of Mr. Epstein no longer wanting to participate in the foundation's philanthropic goals?
I don't, only in preparation for this have I been told that, there was no real interest there. And, there was no point in being involved or connected to him.
And we touched on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said you're not aware of Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation. Would you consider, let me back up. President Clinton took trips on Mr. Epstein's jet, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you consider offering a private jet as a donation in kind to the foundation?
Well, I don't know what the rules are under the 501c3 regulations, but it was certainly a gift. And he was, one of a number of people who provided transportation so that Bill could do the work he was doing.
I think we touched on this. Did Mr. Epstein end up donating to the foundation or CGI?
I have no personal knowledge of that.
You're not aware of a $25,000 donation from Mr. Epstein's affiliated companies to the foundation?
Only what I was told was alleged in preparation for this testimony. I did not know about that, and I don't know that it's true.
Are you aware of the Clinton Foundation reviewing any records in regard to Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation?
I will have to ask our lawyers. I did not.
Have you had any conversations about the foundation reviewing those donations made by Mr. Epstein?
I think I'll have to ask our lawyers. I don't know. I didn't review them.
Understood. Ms. Mace, do you have some questions?
I did. Thank you for being here this afternoon. In your opening remarks, you mentioned this is political theater and partisan. Do you believe the Epstein files are a vast right-wing conspiracy?
I think if they are fully released as the Transparency Act requires, that would be fulfilling the responsibility of the Justice Department. But it appears that there have been many issues with the full release. So I'm not going to characterize it other than to say I think that's a well-known fact.
Are you aware that both Republicans and Democrats voted to subpoena you and your husband?
I am here.
Okay. Are you aware both Republicans and Democrats voted to hold you in contempt when you didn't show up?
I am here.
Is that partisan when both parties vote to do something together? Is that partisan or nonpartisan?
I think it's standing up for the institution, but there are many other aspects of the committee's work that strikes me as avoiding the main issues about who should be sitting here, who has actual information that might be useful to your investigation.
As a survivor, I'm a survivor. I appreciated your opening statement and your prioritizing some of these issues. Have you always believed this way? Have you believed this way for some time?
Have I what?
Have you believed what you believed in your opening statement for some time?
Yes, I have.
How long have you had those beliefs or held those beliefs in your opening statement?
Very long.
In 1998, you had those same beliefs?
Yes.
2005?
Yes.
2008?
Yes.
2012?
Sure.
2016?
Mm-hmm.
2020?
Mm-hmm.
2024 to present day, you've held these beliefs the whole time?
Yes, I have.
Have you always believed that women abused by powerful men should be believed?
I know where you're going with this, and I have
Do you?
nothing to say about anything in the past. I'm here to answer questions about this investigation.
So do you believe
Talk
that
about her own husband.
women who are abused by Epstein and an Epstein circle of associates should be believed?
I think that many of them have made very credible accusations.
Have you always thought that, do you think that women abused by powerful men should get justice?
I think that they should have their time to be evaluated, and where there is adequate evidence, they should certainly get justice, and perpetrators should be held to
The
account.
question was, have you always thought that women abused by powerful men should get justice?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Are you aware that, you were aware, I think you said this earlier, that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in 2008 for procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute, correct?
That's what the charges were, yes.
And you were aware of that in 2008?
I don't recall that I was aware then.
And in 2008, you were a US Senator still?
I was.
Would you say that Jeffrey Epstein is one of the world's most prolific sex traffickers?
From what we know, he certainly engaged in his predatory activities for a long period of time.
Would you say he's one of the world's most prolific sex traffickers?
I don't know what to compare it to. There are terrible sex trafficking rings all over the world.
And you said you were Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And you state your agency prioritized combating sex trafficking internationally, correct?
That's correct.
During your time as Secretary of State, did you or the state receive any intelligence cables or briefings mentioning Epstein's foreign travel, pedophile island, or his network of pedophiles and sex trafficking?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
How did you miss it? If he's, I believe, one of the most prolific sex traffickers in the world, you were Secretary of State. How did you miss it?
Well, that would have been a matter of the Justice Department, not the State Department.
But in your opening statement, and your statements earlier in your opening statement, you stated that Secretary Rubio should be called to testify. And you said that he has, and the administration has, quote, abandoned survivors using the same logic. You were Secretary of State during a time period after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of being a pedophile and soliciting children for sex. Why then did you, quote, using your own logic, abandon survivors?
What is the question, please?
I followed her comment. First of all, we focused on whether there were laws that made sex trafficking, sexual slavery, domestic violence, other abuses of women on the books in countries. And then we tried to evaluate, were those laws being implemented? And were judges appropriately trained and briefed about how to implement those laws? Were governments taking them seriously? We looked at the broad institutional approach to these very serious abuses.
Would you say the U.S. government at that time, during this time period, was appropriate with the way that it handled Epstein?
I don't think that you could say that was true about any of the government's prosecutorial efforts, starting with the Southern District of Florida and Alex Acosta and all those who basically gave him a sweetheart deal. And then I think going up the chain, there was very little attention paid that should have been paid. But we had laws on the books, they were not being implemented. But that was not within my purview, because what we were looking at is what's the institutional structure, and can we do more to make sure countries take it seriously, Our country had laws on the books.
So
This,
if
this
it
man
not
was
in
not
your
held to account.
purview, if it was not in your purview when you were Secretary of State, then why is it today in Secretary Rubio's?
Exactly.
Because what's happened is that the office that was actually following what was going on around the world has been decimated. 70% of the staff is gone. It's impossible to carry out the functions of that office if you don't have a critical number of people. So my question would be to Secretary Rubio, is there more that can be
I'm running out
done?
of time here. You were clothed with immense power as Secretary of State. You've stated on the record in your opening statement that child sex trafficking in general, human trafficking, trafficking of all kinds is a priority. You were clothed with immense power. Your husband was clothed with immense power. And until you got this subpoena and until these files were out in the open, you did nothing to try to effectuate all of these things. You say that should have been done. Is that correct?
No, it's totally incorrect. I mean, all of your assumptions are ones that I reject.
When you saw photos of your husband in a hot tub laying on a beach and getting massaged by other women, and you knew that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in some of these trips and these things, did it concern you at all?
I'm here not to offer my opinions. I'm here to answer specific questions to the best of my
When
ability.
you saw your husband in these photos with a young woman being massaged, what went through your mind?
I am not going to speculate.
You didn't have any feelings about young
That's not
women
speculation.
massaging your husband.
I am not going to offer opinions or speculation about anything that I have no context for and was not there.
After you learned that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex crimes with kids, did any of these photos of your husband with women being massaged on the beach, that concern you?
I have no context for even answering that question. And I think, obviously the innuendo, all the rest of it.
I'm asking a black and white question. I'm not putting any leading statements into it or adjectives. Did you do anything to determine what was happening in those images or on those trips that once you saw these photos, once you realized Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender of children, did you do anything to determine what was happening on these trips with your husband?
I don't find any of your questions to be relevant to the investigation.
Well, relevant if a former president was traveling around with young women.
Well, you'll have a chance to talk to him tomorrow.
You said this morning you did not solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Did anyone solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein on your behalf?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you ever invite Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to any of your political fundraisers?
I did not personally invite them to my political fundraisers.
Did anyone personally invite them on your behalf?
I do not know.
Is the purpose of a political fundraiser to solicit funds?
You would know that it is.
Okay, and you stated this morning you've never communicated with a Sarah Kay, correct?
I do not know who Sarah Kay is.
Okay, she is a councilwoman from New Rochelle, which is about how many miles from here?
Not very far away.
20 to 25?
I have no idea.
I have an exhibit I would like to enter. This is an email dated September 30th, 2014. Am I allowed to enter an exhibit?
Yes, ma'am. This will be exhibit 13, I believe, majority exhibit 13.
Okay, it's from September 30th, 2014.
Can you please provide the witness with a copy?
Okay, you have a copy of it?
Yeah.
You guys have it?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And can you read me the subject line of the email?
Following up event with Hillary Clinton and Congresswoman Lowy.
Do you know who Congresswoman Lowy is?
She was our congresswoman here for many years.
And who is the email from?
Someone named Sarah Kay.
Above that, at the very, you have that very top one. Okay. All right, from Sarah Kay, and it's redacted on who was sent to. Can you read me the email?
Okay, thank you very much for the prompt reply. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for the invitation, but unfortunately, Jeffrey will not be able to attend. Thanks so much for speaking with me just now. Attached, please find the invitation and response card for the event we spoke about with Hillary Clinton and Congresswoman Lowy at the Harvard Club. That was a fundraiser, I believe, for Congresswoman Lowy that I attended to support her, is my recollection.
Okay. And this is it. This is an email. This is an invitation to the fundraiser where you were there.
Do you have any idea if the Epstein referred to is the Jeffrey Epstein? There's a lot of people named Epstein in this area.
This is in the DOJ files.
I have no knowledge of it.
It says Mr. and Mrs. Epstein.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of this.
Okay, so it could be a different Jeffrey Epstein.
You're showing me an email from someone who I don't recall knowing about a fundraiser that wasn't for me, but was for Congresswoman Lowy. I have no information.
Okay.
I went to the fundraiser to support my friend Nia Lowy.
All right.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
I have
There are
another,
photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying
Oh,
from
this is where
inside
she
this room.
freaks
Can you
out.
please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how
I'm
that
done
can
with
occur?
this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
You will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would like
sake.
to understand how that's permissible.
before the hearing was,
It doesn't
Excuse
matter. We all were abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So I
well,
would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah,
I would like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Go off the record. Go off the record.
Well, and I think Benny Johnson was the one that sent it around on X or something. Oh my goodness, that's pretty dumb. I'm just saying that taking the pictures, they shouldn't have done that. I will give her that. If it's supposed to be closed door, she shouldn't have had pictures circulated. But anyway, so this was the explosive moment. She storms out of the room, and anyway. Oh, good grief. Just give it a minute to come back.
We'll go back on the record. The majority's time had approximately 5 minutes left in it. I believe that the witness or her counsel would like to make a quick statement.
Thank you so much. We've just used the break because we learned during the process of these hearings that the committee was violating its own rules and members tweeting and sharing pictures of what is going on inside this closed hearing, the hearing that we have asked repeatedly to be open to the public. Chairman Comer was gracious enough to engage with me on this matter. We asked specifically to invite the press in, since the committee had already made decisions on its own unilaterally to release pictures and other things that are going on in this room. He indicated that he wanted to speak to that himself directly. I'd like to just say for the record, we find it unacceptable, we find it unprofessional, and we find it unfair. We are looking forward to this being conducted under the rules and being conducted consistent with expectations of how members of Congress, I know, take this matter so seriously and do it in that vein. We would also like to just indicate as a practical reality that we are here in good faith. We are counting on the good faith of all the members.
Thank you. Chairman Comer.
Yeah, I'd like to state for the record, I've advised my members that no photos or videos during the deposition can be released. I understand the posted photo was taken before the deposition started. That will not happen again, and we will look forward to continue with the deposition.
I'd like to make just a clarification there, Mr. Chairman. It was taken in this room after the witness sat down. It is not a basis that because she had not started speaking, that it would be appropriate for there to have been a release of anything that was occurring in this room.
And we have made clear that that's not allowed. And I will also say we were disappointed that the Secretary's opening statement was leaked to the press before she even gave her opening statement.
So the Secretary's statement was not leaked to the press. It was provided, as with other witnesses, including Mr. Wexner, who provided his before giving. Hers was given simultaneous. And so what we don't want is the Secretary to be treated any differently than other witnesses. That seems to be a consistent pattern, and we would love that pattern not to continue.
We've gone to great lengths to make all the accommodations that you all have requested. So we will, again, the members have been advised that is unacceptable.
Why would they allow
So
cell
look
phones in
forward to
there?
Continuing the
Thank
deposition.
you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you addressing this.
Saying.
Ranking Member Garcia.
Thank you. No, I just want to add, it's completely unacceptable that Oversight Republicans and its members in this moment chose to violate both committee rules
Oh,
and the
good
agreement that they negotiated directly with Secretary Clinton. Now, the Clintons requested a public hearing specifically to avoid this exact situation. Now, Secretary Clinton has offered to continue speaking throughout this deposition if we also allow the press to come in and on the record. Now, the majority has continued to refuse this. I want to make it very clear for the record that Oversight Democrats agree today they should be allowed here into the deposition. That's been our position from day one. Thank you.
And with that, the majority will conclude its first hour. We'll go off the record.
We can go back on the record. I understand council has something that they would like to say before we get started.
Yes, I would. First of all, I'd like to say I appreciate everyone being here today, but I want to start with, we just learned that there has been a second violation
Oh my gosh.
of the promise that the chairman made with respect to no photos being taken in this room during this hearing. As you know, we have asked for and did ask Mr. Comer for the press to be invited in. They are sitting right outside, literally. He has been speaking with them, and we have been asked that they be invited in at the last break because we learned that there was a member who was sharing photos from inside this room in violation of this committee's own rules. We
What
have
the
now been
heck?
presented with a second photo of the witness, Secretary Clinton, while she has been testifying in this room. That is completely inconsistent with the rules. It's completely in violation, and it's also in violation of the promise that Mr. Comer just made with respect to it would not happen again. And indeed it did. And so I would like to ensure that when we go back on the record and when Mr. Comer elects to rejoin the room, I note he has left for the record, I would like to be able to ensure that we address that. Or, sorry, he has not left. He's down at the end. There's been a second violation, Mr. Chairman. So now I do really feel that it would be appropriate for the press to be invited in because someone has already violated the commitment and promise you made that there would not be any further violations. I am confident that one of the individuals here can share with you a copy of the picture, and I would rather that at this point, we invite the press in.
We're gonna show the photo. It's from. I believe it's from the same influencer.
How stupid. I'm sorry. This is like,
Go with him to make sure we're soon.
what the hell are they keep doing this for? Just get the damn deposition over with. All this is gonna be like in the public domain. Why would they do that? Okay, I don't normally agree with the Democrats or anything like that, and I know these people probably, the attorneys are probably not Democrats, but it's like at this moment, this is stupid. They should not have been taking pictures in violation of whatever agreement they made beforehand. I mean, I do agree at least with this. They should have just left it private until it was time for it to be released to the public. I mean, this is like dumb. And they shouldn't even allow cell phones in the room because you know people are going to be mischievous and do something stupid like this. So I get it. I mean, I know she's high profile, blah, blah, blah. Let's get her on, in these pictures so we can go viral. But they shouldn't have done that and shared it even online. I mean, I think Benny Johnson should not have done that if that's who it was sent to, because I think I remember him saying something about that in the video. It's like, come on now. Just give it time to go public. This is such a waste.
Mr. Chairman, will you allow the press in at this time since there has been a second violation of your clear guidance that no further pictures.
To confirm with the chairman. Go off the record, please.
This is why they can't get
We
anything
can go
done.
back on the record.
Thank you very much. We have examined the second photo that was taken inside this room in violation of the committee's rules. Mr. Chairman, you have indicated that you will assure that that will not happen again. Mr. Chairman, we continue to believe that the remedy for this is to invite the press in at this juncture. We believe that there is no reason not to do so. We recognize that you continue to resist having the press join, but if you would like, we would welcome that. Otherwise, we would welcome no further violations.
What was the last part? You would love to.
I know it's hard to hear without amplification.
No further violation, no further violation. But I would like to note one thing, if I may. A New York Times reporter tweeted that, her dim member in the room, and then she said, you know, that Maxwell was at Chelsea's wedding because she was dating a friend who brought her as a +1 and all that. So there's a Democrat member leaking to the press what's going on in here, according to the
Oh,
Katie.
the tables have
So,
turned.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I know part of this is always about the tit for tat, and I think that's what we're trying to
Right.
address. We're here and we're speaking with respect to the witness and what has been a violation of a photo of her inside this room. I'm not trying to get into anybody else's First Amendment rights. When it comes to the photo, please instruct your member to take the photo down
It's
until
already
after.
probably been
Thank you
retweeted
so much.
and retweeted
Nothing further.
viral by
Thank you.
now.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is. I'll be doing most of the questioning for the minority today. First, I want to thank you for your long and distinguished service to this country.
Thank you.
I'd also want to thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we get to questions, I'd like to take a few minutes and highlight some context that we think is relevant for today's conversation. To be candid with you, it's not clear to us that you have much information to share with this committee that would be relevant to our investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. For example, I would like to introduce as Minority Exhibit A, this excerpt from Ghislaine Maxwell's interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
I've got videos on that.
I'll
We
read
went
out
through
loud the relevant excerpts for you.
transcripts and everything.
You can see that Ms. Maxwell was asked, quote, "Do you know whether Mr. Epstein knew or had any sort of visit, dealings, or associated with Hillary Clinton?" And Ms. Maxwell said, quote, "I would say no." Ms. Maxwell was asked, quote, "Did you ever see them together?" Ms. Maxwell said, "No." So there are some events we're aware of where you might have been in the same place as Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell at the same time. We'll ask about those, but we are a little confused about why we're even here. I imagine you might have your own perspective on this. You shared a little bit of that earlier. Is there anything more you'd like to share from your point of view on today's conversation before we get started?
Thank you very much, Counsel. I appreciate your recognition of the context. I do not think I am or could be a significant witness to anything that would affect the work of this committee with respect to the investigation. I understand that that was a decision made to subpoena me, and I thought it would have been more appropriate to treat me in the context in which you have just placed me. That's why I offered a sworn statement outlining my lack of knowledge with respect to either Epstein or Maxwell and the crimes that they committed. But the majority of the committee and then the entire committee determined that they wished to talk with me. And it is, still somewhat of a puzzle for me to be here and trying to answer your questions to the best of my ability, because I don't think it's a good use of the committee's time. The matters that are included within the broad scope of the investigation as described by the chairman are ones that I take very seriously, and I would personally like to see the committee pay attention to those who have information that could be responsive.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to start our conversation with a few foundational questions so we can get a clear record from the very beginning. And you've covered some of this earlier, but I want to be really clear for the transcript. Before his crimes became public, did you have any knowledge of the sexual abuse that Jeffrey Epstein was committing against girls and young women?
No.
Before her crimes became public, did you have any knowledge of the sexual abuse that Ghislaine Maxwell was committing and facilitating against girls and young women?
No.
Our colleagues have suggested that they need to speak with you because Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew worked for your 2008 presidential campaign and then at the State Department when you were Secretary of State. That is somebody named Alexander DeRossi. Are you familiar with Alexander DeRossi?
I am. Alex Gerasi volunteered for my 2008 presidential campaign. I did not know him. I don't know what motivated him to be a volunteer, but he proved to be a very effective contributor to the campaign. He earned a paid position on the campaign. All of my staff that interacted with him on the campaign had a very high regard for his intelligence and his skills. He's an extremely well-educated young man. And when I became Secretary of State, he was recommended for a job that he was well suited for. I had absolutely no idea that he was in any way related to Ghislaine Maxwell until I received the subpoena from this committee suggesting that he was. And that was the first I knew of it.
So is it fair to say that as far as you know, Mr. DeRossi was not hired for your campaign or at the State Department because he was Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew?
That is absolutely fair to say, and I can't speak for everyone in my campaign. Obviously, it's a huge enterprise, but I would be surprised if anyone knew that he was related to Ghislaine Maxwell, but I can absolutely testify to the fact that I did not.
Are there any other accusations or claims that have been made against you with respect to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell that you would like to address before we move into some chronological questions?
Well, I don't keep up with all the conspiracy theories and the crazy allegations that populate the internet, so I'm sure there are, but I will do my best to answer your questions as you pose them.
Okay, I will ask a series of chronological questions. I know most of these are from a long time ago. If you don't recall, just tell me you don't recall. As an initial matter, would you recall roughly how many events and receptions would you have attended at the White House during your time as First Lady?
Well, I was privileged to be at the White House as First Lady for 8 years, and I have no way of giving you an accurate number, but they would be in the thousands. And they were, you know, one of the great privileges of being in the White House, hosting events, hosting meetings, meeting people, using the rooms of the White House, using the grounds of the White House. So many hundreds, maybe thousands of events, but many, many thousands of people.
I was just going to ask if you could estimate how many people you might have met at those hundreds or thousands of events and receptions.
Well, Council, I can't say I met every person who ever attended an event. And so I can't really give you an accurate number. But if the event was a small event, perhaps I would meet everyone. But for most of the large events that we hosted, it was hit or miss if I met somebody or didn't meet somebody. For the huge Christmas receptions, which were thousands of people that would come to enjoy the holiday decorations at the White House. So I can't really give you a totally clear answer other than I did my best to greet people and to be an appropriate hostess because I took seriously my responsibilities as First Lady.
So Mr. Epstein visited the White House a fair amount during your husband's first term in office. One, and I think the only specific event that we're aware of where you may have been present was, as you mentioned earlier, a September 29th, 1993 reception for donors to a White House renovation project that was funded through the White House Historical Association. And our understanding is there was some kind of reception that night. Do you have any recollection of attending that event or that reception?
I have no specific recollection, but I know that I was expected to, and I assume I did. But I can't, sitting here today, describe anything specific about that event. But I was very anxious to support fundraising that went to the White House Historical Association that in turn supported the upkeep and the maintenance of the White House. Because certainly, you know, it was an old building with a lot of very valuable furniture and art, and it took a lot of wear and tear because I just finished explaining we had thousands of people who would come through. And I'm not even talking about the visitors who would come through, because that was many, many more thousands. So the house itself needed to be carefully cared for. And so my husband and I hosted the event, and the White House Historical Association brought those who had contributed because it was ultimately beneficial for the White House.
Would it be correct to say that sitting here, you have no specific memory or recollection of meeting Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell at that event in 1993?
That is an accurate statement. In fact, when I got the subpoena, I was incredulous because I never thought I was in the same room with Jeffrey Epstein. And it was brought to my attention that he was very likely to have attended the White House Historical Association, but I have no independent recollection of that.
Okay. It has been publicly reported that Mr. Epstein visited the White House 16 other times during your husband's first term. He was signed in by different staff members and visited different parts of the White House. Broadly speaking, do you have any memory or knowledge of any other visits by Jeffrey Epstein to the White House other than the one we just discussed?
Not that I recall, but I want to be clear. That doesn't mean that, you know, I didn't pass somebody in the hallway, that somebody didn't pop in, but I have no recollection of meeting with him, seeing him, conversing with him in the White House.
I'm going to fast forward all the way to 1999. We believe that Mr. Epstein contributed $20,000 to your joint fundraising account with the Democratic Party. Would you have any specific memory, knowledge, or recollection of that particular contribution sitting here today?
I do not. And again, this was something that I learned about in preparation for testifying. And as you point out, counsel, the contribution went to the joint committee that was set up to support my Senate campaign. And my memory is that we couldn't coordinate between joint committees and campaigns. I mean, those were the rules back in the day, as I recall them. So I don't have any recollection at all that I knew he contributed to my campaign. And he did not contribute, as far as I know, directly. But then this indirect contribution to the joint committee, I don't recall that I knew it at the time. And I was, you know, surprised to learn it in preparation for testifying.
So at this point, toward the end of your husband's presidency, how would you characterize your relationships at that point with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell?
Non-existent.
Thank you. Moving to the period after your husband's presidency, again, we don't really have much of a record to work off of. There is public reporting that sometime in 2007, Ms. Maxwell may have co-hosted a fundraiser for your presidential campaign in New York City. We don't know much about it. Christina Aguilera may have performed, if that's helpful. Do you have any specific recollection of that event?
I do not, but I, again, have been told and reminded that there was an event with a very large host committee for my campaign, and Christina did appear and I believe performed. I have no further information than that. I was attending many fundraising events, and I don't recall any specific encounter or conversation with anyone, including Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ms. Maxwell also appears to have donated $2,300 to your presidential campaign that year. Do you have any memory or knowledge of that specific contribution?
I do not.
Would it be fair to say that your presidential campaign likely would have had a fair number of donors donating $2,300 thereabouts?
Oh, many, many thousands. I don't recall the exact number, but my best memory is that we raised nearly $1 billion. And so it was a fast, frenetic pace. And I'm grateful for everyone who contributed, obviously, but I have no specific recollection of her contribution.
It's been widely reported, and we, I think, discussed in the previous hour that in July of 2010, Ms. Maxwell attended your daughter's wedding in Rhinebeck, New York, and that she may have accompanied Ted Waite, who is reportedly a family friend, or at least was at the time. You, of course, were also present at the wedding. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Maxwell's attendance at the wedding?
I have no specific recollection. Obviously, there's a picture of her being at the wedding as my husband walks my daughter down the aisle. She was there as a guest of Ted Waite, someone we had known for 30 years, I believe, who was a strong supporter of my husband and became a friend. And there were more than 500 people at the wedding. So other than that picture of her at the wedding, I have no recollection of talking with her. I was pretty focused on my daughter and the wedding party and the wonderful occasion that it was. So I don't recall having any conversation other than the fact she was there, and she was there as Ted Waite's guest.
And the understanding that you had, if any, about her relationship with Mr. Waite, what was your understanding of that, if you had?
That they must have been dating. And this was, of course, long before certainly I knew anything about the activities that she was charged with engaging in and the crimes that she was convicted of.
During her interview last year with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Ms. Maxwell said that she may have met you on a flight from Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard to New York. That's not allowed to go on, and I would note that one of the charges Ms. Maxwell faced was perjury. But do you recall ever meeting Ms. Maxwell on a flight from Massachusetts to New York?
I don't recall it. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, but I don't recall it. And my memory too, counsel, you would have to check this, but I believe I was told that in her long interview with Todd Blanche, it's Todd Blanche, right? Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, she herself said that she attended the wedding as Ted Waite's guest.
In that same interview, Ms. Maxwell said that she visited your home in Chappaqua a few times and that she was invited. Do you have any memory or knowledge of Ms. Maxwell being invited to and visiting your home?
I do not, and I was not present for any visit if one occurred.
It's been reported that in September of 2013, at a Clinton Global Initiative conference in New York, Ms. Maxwell was recognized as a commitment to action partner for her work on behalf of the Terra Mar Project, which was an ocean conservation nonprofit that she founded in 2012. Do you have any recollection of whether you were at that event? So that's a Clinton Global Initiative conference in New York in September 2013.
I believe I attended the conference, but during the conference, there are many different sessions going on. There are some main stage sessions with very high profile people. We've had an extraordinary collection of world leaders, including Pope Francis and others. But then there are many of what are called breakout sessions that are smaller sessions where people gather usually around the issue they're interested in. So in this case, if it had been the oceans, there might have been a breakout session about that. And I do not recall seeing her there. I do not recall any knowledge of her being there. But if she were there and she were making a commitment, it would have been in one of these smaller sessions. And I have to add, in 2013, Ms. Maxwell spoke at the United Nations. She gave a TED Talk. She was featured for her work about oceans in a long profile on CNN. So she had a public persona that the UN, the TED Talk people, CNN, and the press all recognized, because nobody at that time knew what was later discovered.
And is it right to say, and it sounds like you would not have had any direct role in organizing whatever her role was at that particular event?
Not that I recall.
At that point in 2013, if you can recall, how would you have characterized your relationships with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell?
Had no relationship, no knowledge of, never met or talked to Jeffrey Epstein. I viewed Ghislaine Maxwell as an acquaintance, someone that I might see, but had no real relationship with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I know that a couple of the minority members have just a couple questions as part of this hour as well. And so I have a few, and then I'll turn it over to a couple of the minority members as well. You can hear me okay from here?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
But it would help if the minority
Yeah.
members would move to where
Yeah, they're going to sit right here as soon as I'm.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I want to just begin by just asking a few questions, which I believe you've already clarified in your opening statement, but just to be very clear on the record one more time. As best as you can recall, you've never met Jeffrey Epstein.
That's true. That's correct.
As best as you can recall, and I know that, and you've said this, you've never went to the island.
Never went to the island.
You never flew with him on a plane.
Never flew with him on a plane.
And you were never aware of his horrific crimes prior to those becoming public knowledge. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted just to know, one of the questions that we've been receiving a lot has been speculation amongst the public that Jeffrey Epstein was somehow affiliated with foreign intelligence agencies or other intelligence services. And I know that we have received numerous questions of that type. Now, obviously, you served as Secretary of State. I'm thank you for your service. In your role as Secretary of State, were you ever made aware of Jeffrey Epstein having any types of relationships with foreign intelligence agencies, obviously, of course, of a foreign country?
I was not. And Ranking Member Garcia, I am aware of the speculation around this that comes from the files being released and questions being raised. And I do think that is a fruitful area for the committee to investigate.
No, I appreciate that, because I'll say of the types of questions that we're receiving, the kind of conversation around whether Jeffrey Epstein had any ties to foreign intelligence or was working with foreign governments continues to come up. And so obviously, as Secretary of State, that would be something I would imagine, you may or may not have information for. So I appreciate that response. Madam Secretary, just lastly, I want to also thank you for your testimony. And broadly speaking, you've probably been following just recently, and if this week, we've seen, and there's been reports that numerous files are missing from the group of files that have been released. For the record, only about approximately 50% of the total files have likely been released. The other percentage have been withheld for whatever reasons we're not really sure of and don't really understand. It's also been reported by numerous outlets this week that the FBI has removed files that are supposed to be made available to the Congress that include serious allegations of alleged abuse by President Trump,
Of course.
sexual abuse
Yeah.
to a minor. Now, these are allegations that we know have been corroborated in other ways, and the media have reported on these, but these files themselves have been removed. Now, we view this as a very serious matter. I've personally looked for these files in the archive manifest that lists which files should be placed there. Those files are no longer there. And we have been calling on the DOJ and the Attorney General to release all of the files. I'm wondering if, in your experience, obviously in the US Senate, as Secretary of State, if you've any response to the behavior of the DOJ in their withholding of critical information and the apparent removal.
Before she answers, because you know this is fixed to be Trump derangement syndrome, whether you like it or not. The DOJ has failed in the last, 4, 5 administrations. Because I think this all started under Clinton with the Maria Farmer and Annie Farmer. And then it went to, who was it? George Bush Jr. And then after that was Obama, and then Trump, and then Biden, and then Trump again. So what was that? 5 administrations? So this isn't like a new thing. This is not new. And so pretty much like I said yesterday, Trump is actually having to clean up the mess that all these other administrations failed to get this guy on. And her husband was there for at least that. I think that's when he was in there. Hold on. Let's see when Bill Clinton was in office. Just so for accuracy's sake. Bill Clinton. 42nd U.S. president. Let's see when he was in office. So he was in office from January 11th, 1983 to December 12th, 1992. Okay, so then it would have been what? George W. Bush, which is the so then the Bush administration, the second Bush. So that's who would have been in charge during this time. So he was from 1995 to December 21st, 2000. So that's crazy. Oh, that was not correct. That was president, he was January 20th, 2001 to January 20th, 2009. Hold on. Okay. Sorry. I got that mixed up. He was governor during that other period. So Bill Clinton was in office from January 20th, 1993 to January 20th, 2001. So yes, it has been 5 administrations at least that had a problem getting this guy, getting the Epstein stuff. Because I think it was 1995 or 96 when Maria Farmer went first public with the FBI, or at least went to them trying to get some kind of resolution for the abuse her and her sister might have suffered. Anyway, so Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and then Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2. So that is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So 5 administrations have dropped the ball on this guy. So before she answers with her TDS answer, just think of who all's been involved with this and how many people dropped the ball on the Epstein thing. How many departments of justice?
Of files that could suggest serious crimes by folks in this administration.
Congressman, I appreciate your raising this issue, and I appreciated the statement that you put out when this became public knowledge, thanks to investigative reporting, which revealed it. And I think that this behavior by the Justice Department deserves the most thorough investigation that the Congress could carry out. As I understand the sequence of events, this committee subpoenaed the Justice Department, as well as the Epstein estate, as well as law enforcement officials from prior administrations, as well as my husband and me. The Justice Department refused to comply, which is what led to the passage by the Congress of the Transparency Act, which then was signed into law. And I think from the very beginning, the behavior of the Attorney General and her staff has demonstrated either a gross incompetence, which is bothersome because they are the keepers of information that
I'll give her that. Pam Bondi did drop the ball on this. When she brought all those influencers in last year in February and gave them basically redacted freaking binders full of crap with nothing in them. Yeah, I think she should have stepped down because she went on whatever that press conference after it was revealed, I think, by the O'Keefe Media Group that she was saying something about there was like 10,000 hours of child CSAM or whatever you want to call it. I won't use the other word, but I mean, she dropped the ball. And then she had to come out after it was revealed that she had said that on like a hidden camera thing. And then she said there was like 10,000 hours of this CSAM stuff. And then it's like, what are you doing? Why did you not release the files like you were supposed to? And no, we're not going to cover for anybody. I mean, if Trump did it, fine. But why did it take 5 administrations and the guy supposedly dying, and we still don't have a resolution to all this, and nobody's been held accountable except for maybe Ghislaine, but then she got a lighter sentence because she gave testimony, blah, 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 in that deposition. So I was like, what's going on? No, I do think that there needs to be some accountability with these people if there were people that he trafficked to. And why is it so hard for them to go through the videos, redact the kids' faces, take still shots of those videos, and then arrest the people that actually did these things? Because I was listening to Nick Bryant the other day. He said that there's no statute of limitation on child sex trafficking. So if the children were sex trafficked, why would there be a statute of limitations on that? I mean, I'll have to check on that. I just want to make sure that I'm correct. But there shouldn't be any kind of statute of limitations when you're harming children. And anybody involved with that should be held accountable. That's just my opinion. As a survivor myself, I think anybody that's done that, there should not be any kind of statute of limitations. Anyway, I guess that's something Congress needs to change. If that is what's going on, or each state needs to change it, their legislation. Anyway, let's go ahead and let her finish. I set a timer for a little bit over like an hour, but I want her to finish her statement. Sorry for interrupting, but yes.
should be evaluated for law enforcement purposes, or a clear cover-up because they are protecting the president and others. Either one of those should be the focus of this committee to try to get to the bottom. If they are incompetent and they are incapable of complying with the law that the Congress passed, we need to know that because they are falling down on the job. They have an FBI director who's more interested in drinking beer in a hockey dressing room after our team won the Olympics, rather than being responsive and complying with the law as it has been promulgated. So I don't think it's unfair to say that given the sequencing of the events, starting with the way that President Trump made the release of the files a key element of his 2024 campaign.
I don't think he did.
The promise that he and then his attorney general made that the
I think what he actually said was that he would look into it. I remember him with what's that girl's name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he was in an interview. The lady asked him, what about the JFK files, RFK, MLK? He said, yes, yes, yes. And then when it came to Epstein, he said, I'll look into it. I don't think he actually made a promise, unless he did it during a rally, and I didn't watch all the rallies. I mean, I wasn't there for every single one, and I certainly don't have to sit and listen to everything he said, so I didn't have time for that. I don't think he made it as a campaign promise. I think it was just something he said they would look into it. Because I'm sure they figured out, oh, there's like millions of documents. And why is this guy so important but there's millions of documents on him. 6 million documents. What the hell was he? I mean, just saying.
Files would be released. Then a walking back of that as they began to look at the files, an ignoring of what they had promised, including that they had a client list on the desk of the Attorney General.
She did say that.
Reasonable people would have to assume they are engaged in a massive cover-up, which is infuriating. As an American, as a citizen, all of us should be, regardless of party, wondering what are they hiding?
I am wondering what they're hiding. That's why I'm going through all this stuff, all these pictures. I mean, I've got so many videos just on Epstein. I probably know more about them than I should know. I'm just saying. And I'm not like a thorough investigator type. I'm just like reading documents, going through depositions, watching podcasts, watching depositions, like going through just all of this stuff and just reading it for myself and then posting the videos. I mean, like posting it so other people can actually read through with me if you want. Yeah, that's why I'm going through all this stuff. Is just because I think there should be some accountability, like we talked about. Anyway, let her finish.
And that's why I said in my opening statement, the President of the United States is not above the law and
Neither
should
are
be
you,
in a
ma'am.
setting like this answering questions under oath, as should others who are prominently featured in the files.
Your husband.
And especially the group that is featured after 2008. Because prior to 2008, when Jeffrey Epstein,
And I think Donald Trump cut ties with him in like 2006, from what I remember, after he was taking girls out of the Mar-a-Lago thing. I think that's about the time frame that he kind of kicked him out of his club. Could be wrong. Fact check it if you want, but whatever she's fixed to say about the 2008 time frame, yeah, okay, yeah, I don't think Trump was still hanging out with him. Anyway,
pled guilty to the watered down charges that Alex Acosta negotiated and then was rewarded for in the first Trump administration with a cabinet position.
I doubt he was rewarded.
There are so many unanswered questions. And I looked at the transcript of the Alex Acosta testimony that was taken before this committee. And I don't think that any Republican members asked him a question. So you have to conclude that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, or clearly the Justice Department, starting in the White House and at the top with the Attorney General. And this latest example of the missing files about the allegations, and they are absolutely nothing more than allegations, but the FBI interviewed that witness 4 times. You don't interview a non-credible witness 4 times. You don't put into the FBI reporting, protect this source, if you think there is nothing to it. So of course, I would like to know, like every other American deserves to know, what is in those files and who is going to hold people accountable, because the Justice Department seems to be either unwilling or incapable of doing so.
All right, I'm going to stop it here. I agree. I mean, I think they should, get to the bottom of this. That's why we're going through a lot of these videos. I mean, I think it's better that we know who all was involved. I mean, and I do think that Pam Bondi dropped the ball on a lot of this stuff. But anyway, let me know what y'all think in the comments. I think, yeah, that accountability should be available, but whatever. We'll just see how it all goes and how it all pans out. But I will talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good afternoon. I'll see about recording some more tomorrow. I've been working these night shifts, so it's kind of hard. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.